be named courses. We expect every single child to learn, not some kids, but all children.
Our schools start with a basic presumption that every single kid has something worth saving.
Our children are expected not just to learn to read, write, and compute, but to use that which they've learned to improve their community.
Capital Prep is really a family. They really make you feel like you're wanted. They're really there to really help you and support you and actually get you through to college.
If you knew the backstories to these young people, they're able to overcome what seem to be insurmountable circumstances.
We have high expectations. We send 100% of our graduates on to four-year colleges, and I don't know any other school that does, public or private. This is everybody's fight. It is the cornerstone of freedom as a parent to be able to select where you send your child to school regardless of where you live. We will change the world because we have to recognize that every single child in this country is valuable.
What's happening, Orlando? I am deeply sorry that I cannot be there in person. I tried everything I could. Apparently, snow is more powerful than JetBlue. So I had to find a way to make sure I spoke to you and let you know how much what you're doing means not just to me, but to so many people throughout the country. It's not enough that we're having a school choice conversation in Orlando, but we're being joined by families from all over the country, different parts of the world, who understand that what you're doing is changing the world. We often talk about, in hip-hop, we have new school and old school, and new school seems to be music that I can't understand, and old school is music that I can. But one thing that I do know is that which you are doing is changing the way in which American parents see themselves. The peculiar paradox that many legislators find themselves in. On the one hand, they say that they're for public education. But what that really means is that they're for public employment agencies known as the public school system. See, they're too deep in the game. They've spent too much money on building buildings and building infrastructure to put in place these systems that are important to making sure that children can learn to read, write, and compute. The reason why you are here today, and the reason why I'm speaking to you from my dining room, which is a place that doesn't typically host choice conversations, but is hosting one today, is because we have to find another way to educate our kids. From as far back as 1954, the Supreme Court made the decision that in the United States, forcing children to go to school that are close to their house is inherently unequal. Not just from a racial context, from an economic context. Now, what we've seen people who are supposed to be our friends say is that the issue is that some have more resources than others. While that's true, and it's always going to be the case that some school systems are going to get more money than others, the fact is that what separates good schools from failed schools is not how much money they bring in, it's how many expectations or how high the expectations are that they have for our children. So I'll be specific. School choice, at its core, the conversation that starts with parents taking on the most important of all responsibilities, which is where you send your children to school and how you educate your children. When you're forced into a failed school system, you're forced into schools that lower the expectations for children based upon socioeconomic factors like how much you make as parents, geographic limitations of expectations, and the manifestation of those, which can be found in areas such as many advanced placement classes they offer, where they offer access to college classes while they're still in high school. And even more important, who gets suspended for what and why, and for how long. You as parents have to continue to fight beyond this system of academic apartheid. You have to fight beyond the circumstances that determine where your child not just goes to school, but where they live in the future and what their options are. Because you understand that school choice is the only choice, regardless of your socioeconomic situation, regardless of where you end up living, your child should go to the best school for your child. Dr. Martin Luther King said that a school system should educate so well that you cannot tell where that child is from. He said that you should not be able to tell who the child's parents are or how much money they make. But the fact is that we can tell where your child goes to school based upon where they end up. What that means is the failure rates of American public schools are so profound that we can literally pinpoint the zip code of your child based upon where they end up in their career. We can almost draw a straight line between where your child ends up and where they start. It's something so simple as to where you went to school. Now, we know there is no reason why a child should be limited by where they go to school or where they grew up. But that is currently the case in most parts of the country. You in Florida are leading the way. What I know is that Florida finds its way at the butt of many jokes. But the truth is that Florida is leading the nation in creating opportunities for children to go to the best schools regardless of their economic circumstances. Your fight for vouchers, your fight for charter, your fight for regional school choice makes you trailblazers. You are the ones that are making it possible for us and the rest of the country to imagine beyond our circumstances, to look into the hearts and minds of our children and see not just where they live, but where they will live. Not see what contributions that the community that they live in are being judged by, but what contributions they will be able to be judged by. See, it's a challenge, really, for me to be here talking to you, because what I want to do is I want to feel the warmth, not just of the weather because it's snowing here, but to experience what it is you experience by being in a room filled with parents and advocates committed to a community that in many cases you don't live in. That's what makes school choice so powerful. Of all of the political issues that we fight for and against, school choice is among the only that brings people together from different racial and economic backgrounds, from different communities, as well as different religions. We all understand that the tie that binds us is that we are parents first and then Americans. When I say that we're parents first and then Americans, what that means is that we all want what's best for our kids. Every single one of us wants the opportunity to just imagine what our children will become when given the chance to go to the best for them, and or to be homeschooled. But when we allow this current system that limits our choices to our zip code to persist, we undermine the very fiber of being Americans. See, as parents, we're going to do what we have to do, much in the same way most of our legislators do. Most of our legislators participate in school choice. Whether they move to a community to send their child to the best school for them, or within that community, they choose a magnet or an IB or vocational technical program that meets their child's interests, or they work their way into a private school. But that's not the option for many of us. Many of us are limited by how much money we make or where we live. That, to me, is not just un-American, but it's illegal. In fact, in 1954, in the Supreme Court, Brown versus Board of Education, it was made very clear that children should not be limited in their educational options by where they live. Back then, it was said to be an issue of race, which it still is today. But a more precise description of the limitation is one of economics. I'll tell you what I mean. In some of the schools serving the lowest income children, what you will find is that in those schools, there are very few advanced placement classes. Not because there are very few children who have the capacity to survive and thrive in an AP class. It's because the people who run those schools don't believe that those children are likely to go to college. And because they don't believe that those children are likely to go to college, they don't put in place the systems that are necessary in order for that child to be seen based upon what they can do. So when you limit a child, not by the physical barrier, but by the intellectual barriers of those people who are running their schools, you limit their access to the quality of life that their talents, their God-given talents, should provide them. And so we're here. I'm in my living room, but you are, I'm in my dining room, but you are assembled because you cannot be convinced the child should be or can be limited by where they live. You understand that charter schools and vocational technical schools, magnet schools, regional choice are all part of the solution, but not the solution. You, as leaders of the new school, understand that it's not enough that we just have charter schools and vocational technical schools or even private schools, choice. We have to open up the educational conversation beyond the brick and mortar experience to something that is new, something that is innovative, much in the same way that I am talking to you from West Haven, Connecticut. Imagine, if you will, if you could offer every single child access to the greatest minds of all time, regardless of where they live. Why is it that the child is limited to learning from the people who live in their community, or even worse, visit the community and go back to their own? I do not support traditional American public system of education because the only thing that it is guaranteed to do is to provide guaranteed employment to those who work in it. It does not provide an equal or even commensurate level of academic rigor, emotional development, or professional growth for the children who are forced to enter. That's not just among Black and Latino children, that's among all children. In fact, if you look, you'll find that almost 2/3 of all American children will graduate from high school not college ready, not college ready. What that means is when they take the ACT, that 2/3, in many cases white children, do not have the academic skills that are necessary for them to enter into college as college-ready students. We'll take it one step further. When you look at what we refer to as the achievement gap is not something that is based upon children's ability to learn. It's based upon the people who are teaching and their expectation of what children should be taught. Make sure we make the distinction. When we make the distinction between what a child can learn and what the people who are teaching them believe they should be taught, we create an achievement gap. We create an access gap. We don't build the bridge that is necessary to put children in the best position to be successful. We, in fact, consciously create systems that limit access to high-quality education because we look at children and where they're from, and we judge them such that we set in motion a system that will destroy their very futures, that will send them to college ill-prepared to participate at a full level. A time when they will get to college and they will feel like they're less than, not because they are, but because when they sit in class and they write that first paper, what they will find is that they do not have basic college writing capacity. When they sit in that math class and find that they don't have the math skills that are necessary, when they dream to be a pharmacist and they take biology and chemistry, they will see that they do not have the science background that's necessary, not because they don't have the ability. It is because they were not given access based upon where they live. They were damned because they were born in the wrong zip code in a system that only serves those whose families have the capacity to push the system to make sure that they are seen as full human beings. You understand that we as a people have not fought across racial and economic barriers to end up in 2019 at a time when your fate is still sealed based upon where you live. The reason I had to talk to you today, the reason I had to bring you greetings from my dining room, the reason why this is so important to me is because we cannot miss a moment to fight the fight, to push harder every single day, to step outside of our intellectual ghettos, to step outside of our economic limitations, to step outside of even our racial communities, to step into the place where we are seeing one another not as black people or white people, not as Latinos or Latinas, not as Asian, or not as part of Florida or Northeast, but as parents, people who are part of the new school, people who understand that we cannot allow this system to persist that is limiting our access and, more importantly, squashing the dreams of our children. I'll share with you a story. Just yesterday, our valedictorian from the class of 2018 in one of our schools in Bridgeport came back. He came back to visit school. We sent this young lady who had a 4.1 GPA to the University of Connecticut. She went there to major in pharmacy. She is the first in her family to go to college. She had no problem getting into the University of Connecticut. We received this student in her junior year. She has spent the first 9 years or 10 years of her academic experience in low-functioning, low-performing neighborhood public school. And so when her family sent her to us, nearly at the end of her academic career, what the hope was that we would be able to mitigate the impact of her having gone to and participated in a school system that judged her based upon where she lived. A school system that sent only 7% of its graduates to four-year colleges. 7% of their children to four-year colleges. This mother dreamed beyond the circumstances and believed that if she could go to a school that sends 100% of its graduates to four-year colleges, then her daughter would have the opportunity to live out her dream of becoming a pharmacist. This young black girl went to the University of Connecticut, and in just her second semester, she came back to Bridgeport. And she told us yesterday afternoon that she is going to transfer out of the University of Connecticut and transfer to regional campus. She said she's changing her major from pharmacy to something in allied health. I asked her why. Why are you leaving college? She said, I'm not leaving. I'm just going to go and I'm going to stay at home with my family and go from there. I said, what happened? You're the best that we have. She said, my grades are just not that good in the science. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why we're here. This is one of the smartest young people you will ever meet. There is no limit to her potential. But in the 2 years that we had her, we couldn't scrub clean the experience that she had growing up in a community that didn't believe that she would go to college. We couldn't scrub clean the low expectations that the schools that she went to and the schools that her mother went to and the schools that her aunts went to and the schools that her family still goes to. We couldn't beat that system. My valedictorian, my freaking valedictorian is saying that she's going to leave, not an Ivy League school, the University of Connecticut. She says she's going to tap out after just 16 weeks of college. This can't be America, folks. This is not why you prayed with your child through 104-degree fever. This is not why you read to her while she was in your womb. This was not why you bought those books from Staples that would teach you how to do math. This is not why you fight. This is not why you go to your state capital. This is not what you came to do. This is not who we are as parents, and this is not who we are as a people, that we send the best that we have to our state school from our state public education system, and that they would come back just 16 weeks later saying that they're leaving. We spent an hour talking to her, begging her to reconsider. I don't know if we got through. She was as polite as she always is. We talked to her about allowing us to pick her college classes so she doesn't end up with chemistry, biology, and calculus in one semester ever again. We talked to her about taking classes during the summer at the community college so she can get some of those prerequisites out of the way. We talked to her about making sure that she stays in contact with us and letting her know that she can't come home under any circumstances. I sat in my office with one of our alums who's now one of our teachers. And he, who's an African-American male, he showed her the text message that he sent her in October, telling her, don't take calculus, biology, and chemistry in the first semester of college. That's academic suicide. And she said that the people at her college, that the advisor at her college told her that she had to. There is a system working against our children, brothers and sisters. There is a system that is so effective that no matter how talented our children are, it's still working against them. I left that conversation feeling like a failure. I left that conversation feeling like we didn't beat the system. We sent the best that we had to our state college, and it was going to send her back. This can't be what we as parents accept as our fate. This can't be what we as Americans accept as the fate of our communities. The American public school system in its current form has failed. The only thing that it has done well is guarantee the jobs of the people who work in it. The people who build structure, the people who provide resources to us, from food services to bus transportation. It is a jobs program for the people who work in it. It is not an education system. At the very least, a kid who leaves school from a public school with a high school diploma should be guaranteed the capacity to perform at the college level. For us as African Americans, over 90% of our children will leave high school ill-prepared to participate in a 4-year college experience. Latinos are not much different. It's about 85%. It's not America, folks. It's not what we signed up for. It's not why we send young women and men overseas to fight. It is not why you pay your taxes, and it's not why you assemble together on a Saturday afternoon. You have an obligation to make sure that the story that I've just told you is the last time anyone who ever ran a school tells you such a story. Never again, valedictorian of a school, come back just 16 weeks later with a chest full of doubt, deciding to tap out. My hope is that the conversation we had yesterday worked, but a conversation up against a school system that has been in place for over 300 years may not get us where we need to be. And so I implore you, as fellow freedom fighters, to do all you can to make sure that Florida continues to be leaders in the new school, creating academic opportunities that are not determined by where you live or your race, what your parents do or don't do, what your religion is or is not, but by the fact that these are our children and we are their parents. And we believe that they are amazing. No matter how aggravating they may be, we believe that they are amazing and capable of extraordinary things. I'll say as I close, I'm going to answer questions. There is no greater fear as a father that my sons will not live up to who it is that God made them to be. There is no greater fear than wondering what they will become. For many of you, sadly, your children attend school systems where it is virtually guaranteed that they will not ever get a college degree. And as is the case in our city, in Bridgeport, there's a 93% chance they will never make it to college. 93% chance. I don't know what it takes anymore to get people motivated. Maybe we have to have one of the Kardashians come in and tell us that somebody cheated on somebody, and that'll get our attention. But I think that there are more important issues than which Kardashian is sleeping with whom. I think our children are the most important issue of any time. And the most important issue to them and us as parents and Americans is where we send them to school. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Now they tell me I'm going to answer some questions. Please ask whatever questions you have. They may have to repeat them. Forgive me.
Is it on now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Great. My name is Dr. Raphael Escher. One of the problems that I've noticed that we're having when launching new schools is that a lot of the people that receive the scholarship, for example, there's a family here from the north side. There are no schools for them to send their kids to that are of quality. And then when we try to establish a school, the state has made it so difficult for us to establish a school where we can't even get certified to, it's not certification, but it's like an accreditation to teach a school, because the guy who runs the nonprofit portion for schools to get started in this industry, he doesn't want to return your phone calls if he doesn't like your personality. So I've come in contact with this bigotry when trying to start schools in these areas where the accreditation people do not want to support us or give us the accreditation that we need. So how do we combat that? How can we get the schools where they're needed so these kids can, so parents don't have to drive 30 minutes from the north side to the south side just to send their kid to a good school?
Can someone just repeat that so I can hear it a little bit better?
Okay. I'll say it slowly. How can black parents, white parents, all parents that live in areas that do not have good quality schools, they drive 30 minutes from the north side, you got that? They drive 30 minutes to the north side to the south side, and they cannot find a school in their area. The reason why they cannot find a school in their area is because the institution or the agency that controls accreditation will refuse to call us back when we want to start a school in that area. How do we combat that situation?
So what I hear your question is that you want to know how it is that you can even start a school in a community when the authorizers are not responding. And I can say to you, as somebody who's working with 2 authorizers, actually 3 at this point, that there is no easy way to get a school off the ground. It's not just a regional issue, meaning that when you live in a certain community, you want schools in certain communities, it's actually just an issue. And my very clear suggestion is that you do not relent. I don't know anything that's worth having that is easy. The first school that we opened, it took us 4 years to get that first school open, and the second school, almost 3 years, and then the third school, 4 years. And one would think that after opening the first school and in the second year of the school being open, being recognized as among the U.S. News and World Report top performing high school, that our school system, which was at the time Hartford Public Schools, would have broken their backs to increase the number of seats or access to the seats. But you have to understand, brother, that school systems exist in large part because they're able to promulgate the lie that you cannot effectively educate people from historically disadvantaged populations. One of the reasons why the current American public apartheid system is in place, and it remains so, is because the teachers union in particular has been able to craft a narrative that allows them to present themselves as liberals and friends of the Black and Latino community, friends of parents, and show themselves as doing so by saying that the reason why the children in these failed school systems are not performing at or above grade level is because of the places that they come from or the circumstances that they live in. And so they need teachers associations in particular, union bosses in particular, politicians who they fund, as well as in some cases our very dear friends in the NAACP, need this system to be maintained in order for them to keep jobs and their institutions in place. They are afraid of the creation of other school systems. They are afraid of vouchers. They are afraid of charters. They are afraid of homeschool parents because each one of you provides evidence that the system is a liar, that you can go to college from a trailer park, that you can go to college from a drug-addicted mom, that you can go to college from a set of circumstances where no one has ever gone to college before. And so it's not just an individual who's an authorizer who may be standing in the way of you opening a school. It is the system in and of itself. You have to realize, brother, that for the most part, by and large, hundreds of millions of dollars are poured into these ineffective public school systems every single year. Every time they build $100 million facility for an F school, for a D school, every single time they bring in the superintendent or commissioner de jour with a 3-year contract that they know they're never going to see the end of. Every single time Board of Education members quibble over dirty bathrooms as opposed to low access to advanced placement classes or college classes, IB classes. Every single time we find ourselves quibbling over those things, it is just another flim flam. The fight is even bigger than that particular individual who may be standing in the way of you and you alone getting a school. The schools, and you have to hear me, I'm telling you, as somebody who worked in the school system, is designed to make sure that schools that perform well at educating children from historically disadvantaged populations, that's poor Black and Latino kids, that's poor white kids, that's rural kids, any schools that stand as a shining example of what can happen, any educators within failed schools, brothers like Rafe Escalante and others all over the country who've shown themselves to be able to take children from historically disadvantaged populations and get them to outperform the curve, to live above the mean. All of us, whether it's the school or the individual educators, are attacked by the system. Parents who go demanding access to a quality education are attacked by the system. The system convulses and vomits every time it sees people like you, 500 parents who come together on Saturday. You are public enemy number one to this school system. You are. You freak them out. Because when you win, you're going to crumble their system. And that means that when a third grader can't read at the third grade level, somebody's going to have to be held accountable for that. And it's not going to just be, oh, well, their parents are poor. Their parents come in disrespectful. When you prove that a child can be taken from 5 grade levels behind, and brought up to grade level in 3 years, they're going to call you a cheat. They're going to say you handpicked that kid. Because racism is real, classism is real, and this system is real, man. Y'all got to understand it. It is not a mistake that year on year that we will pay, that the public sector will pay to keep an F school open, that has a state championship football team, but will fire a football coach who loses 5 games. 97% of the children in the school could not read on grade level. And every teacher, every principal, every vice principal will keep their job. Everyone will keep their job. In fact, they will demand more money and get it. But let the football coach lose 5 games and he will lose his job. This is a system that is real and committed to making sure that children, especially children of color, especially poor children, only get out of the apartheid, out of indentured servitude, out of the slavery, the same way that our people have always gotten out, with their bodies, not their minds. There's a reason why it became illegal to teach slaves to read, because when you teach people from historically disadvantaged populations that they are as powerful and as intelligent as any other human being by the one mean that is seen to be the highest of all, which is literacy, then you can no longer enslave them. You can't treat them like they are cattle. You cannot treat them like they are weak. You have to see them as their full human, and you have to give them access to their full humanity. This is not a mistake. The system is designed to make sure that your children only get out of poverty, only get out of the hood, only if they can run, catch, or throw a ball. So, brother, it's not just that person who is being a hard ass. It's the system that is committed to making sure that nobody gets out, ever. Any other questions?
Hello? The floor is going to be open for questions. If you have a question, there's 2 microphone holders on each side of the room. Please raise your hand and we'll get to you, okay?
All right, I'll speak slowly. My question is, and it kind of helps to answer to the gentleman over there, but I'm trying to work alongside of the system. So instead of trying to make a school, I believe we should make community enrichment programs. So whatever they're not getting at school in our community that's 30, 45 minutes away from that great school, we create the enrichment for them that they need to do better. So with that, my question to you is, how do you propose from your outside looking in way of thinking, how do you propose to get access to funding or money that will help to create these enrichment programs so that now our children can have advantages, because it comes down to exposure, exposing them to more things?
So that's a great question. We started as a part-time program. Are you guys familiar with Upward Bound? Okay. So Upward Bound is a part-time out-of-school program that provides access to college preparation in the after-school hours and the weekends, as well as summer, 6-week program. We started that way. And honestly, I got to the point where you are, where I was looking at the system and wondering how I was going to be able to raise money. And so we turned our part-time out-of-school program into our first school in Hartford, Connecticut. I don't know, honestly, how to raise money for a part-time out-of-school program, because we got to that same place where I tried to work alongside the system, but that got old. That got old real fast. I got sick and tired of going in to the school and trying to pull my kids out of lower classes. I'll give you a very specific example. In one of the school systems that we worked with, after our 6-week summer program, most of my kids would end up in a class called extended algebra. And extended algebra was a 3-semester algebra class. And I didn't understand why my kids would have to be put in that class. And so I started asking questions. I started poking around and saying, hey, why are my kids always in this extended algebra class? Did they fail a test or something? Because if they did, I want to know what it is so I can help them prepare. And what I found was guidance counselors at the middle school were determining that my kids, who were overwhelmingly African American, Latino, and poor, were being selected this class. Well, what I found is that if you get in this extended algebra sequence, you don't have the requisite amount of math that you need in order to have the requisite math courses for college. And you also don't have the courses that you need to take the ACT or the SAT. So a decision that was made in the 8th grade based upon what people projected as low expectations onto my kids was limiting their life's prospects. So I don't know how you raise money. I've tried to work alongside the system, and I've also tried to work inside the system. And in both cases, I looked up and realized that that's not where I'm going to be most effective. So my answer is, if you can find out how to raise money alongside a system that is not working to our children's best interest, I'd be interested in knowing. I didn't find the answer.
Just for clarification, I didn't mean like alongside. I just meant more as a alternate. So this is going to be on parents who are looking for those programs. Not so much saying that I'm, working with the school, but if you have parents who, again, in that community, I'm looking to put my kid in extra algebra help. I'm looking for them to find programs that teach them to be a pilot, teach them to be a veterinarian, things like that. It's now creating those opportunities for them. But, on the outside, separate from the school. So just seeing if it was something as far as money-wise, if you had ideas on that. But I'll take your response. Thank you.
Did that, and I laud you for that, and that's my point. If you go to wealthy communities, one of the things that you'll find is that's typical. In most wealthy communities, we pay for our kids to go to SAT or ACT classes. We pay for a Kumon, or we pay for additional courses. You know, one of the lies of the system is that poverty somehow limits a child's ability to learn. The only limit that it puts on a child is not somehow inherent, it's external, meaning that we don't create the expectation that foster responsibility among the educators to provide access to the additional support. What we also find when we do a little research is within even wealthy communities, those communities are providing extra access to after school programs. If you look in places like South Korea and other nations that are beating the pants off of us academically, those kids are not born smarter than our kids. They just go to school longer. They're going to school until 10 o'clock. And so, sister, what you're talking about is the wave of the future. What I mean by that is if they're called Agwam uh, in South Korea, and these are schools that are after school. And these schools start at the end of the school day. And they go from 2, 3 o'clock to 10, 11 o'clock at night. And that's a standard. And if you don't put your child in one of those, your child is hit. So I'm suggesting to you that I hear you and I agree with the necessity for it, even among those people who do send their children to great schools. South Korea is easily doubling, in some cases tripling our performance as a nation. So one could argue that their traditional school system is getting it in. But one of the reasons why their traditional school system is getting it in is because it's augmented by a second school system that the children participate in on the evenings and the weekends and the summers. Finally, if you look in wealthy communities in America, you will find so many examples of what you're suggesting is a necessity for poor parents or parents who don't, or middle class parents who don't have the means. When we want our child to be better in basketball, we put them in an AU. We want to be better in baseball, we do the same thing. When we think they're an elite athlete, we then hire a trainer. When we think that they're going to be a gymnast, we take them to gymnastics. And then from there, we hire a trainer. And if they're really, really good, we hire a nutritionist. After that, we hire a physical therapist and the like. We add more support to the most talented among us. So wouldn't it make sense also for those children who have the least amount of access to provide them with the most support? So I think that yours is the wave of the future, is what the new school looks like, is what it looks like in wealthy communities, is what it looks like for high performers in every industry, in every pursuit. But to how do you raise money? I don't know, because in those other settings, they don't raise money for it. They charge people.
Okay, I'd like us all to take a moment and thank Dr. Perry for joining us via Skype. As always, your words are inspirational and helpful to all of us on the front lines. So thank you very much, and please stay warm up there.
My pleasure. Peace.
Thank you.